morning, afternoon, evening, ladies and gents. So I'm just going to do a quick breakdown today. The current environment is probably, in my opinion, one of the hardest to trade. Um, Suffice to say, I'm actually doing quite well in this environment, so I thought I'd share um, some basic things as to why I'm looking for sells, because I know there's some confusion today. But yeah, so start off on, as always, on the daily. A tool that I use, and it's applicable across the board, all time frames. I've somehow started calling it the box tool, discount tool, whatever you want to call it. But basically, you draw this on the range. It's just a modified Fibonacci, so standard Fibonacci, and then just alter the settings to show this. Draw that on the range, and then as you can see on the daily, we have come back into the sell side discount. And basically what this means is we're on sellers' home turf, so they're going to fight their backs against the wall. Doesn't mean that we're bearish overall, but it's home base, so we can at least expect some defense. Now looking at this, we've come up into this area of interest. We've swept the highs. We start seeing some trap buyers and whatnot, and now we're pulling back. And if we look at this, really, the only area of interest for the algos to chase at the moment is this untapped gold zone down here, these absorption lines, these sells, etc. So since Monday, I've been pretty much, my bias has been bearish, waiting for this turnaround. So that's on the daily, and then I have cleaned up, I've created a duplicate chart on the 240 to see the same thing. Again, discount tool on this range low to this range high, and then we can see in this this consolidation period around the 50%, which is another reason why this tool is really useful. You put it on the range, it basically tells you where not to trade, i.e. in the middle. It sounds simplistic, but when you're first starting out, this is, in my opinion, a really useful tool, because it shows you, when we're trading in a range like this, we're just going from discount to discount. So yeah, coming into today's session, we've set this huge sell-off from the 8th, which is Monday. So we've sold off, setting the structure, broken this absorption line, and then we've created this new range, which we're then looking at. But again, it can be difficult to determine where price is going to go. Now, my bias has been bearish for a while, and the reason that is because on my 4-hour chart, we have this gold zone here for a delta held setup. 1, 2, pull back 3. Got this gold zone, and it's been tested 1, 2, 3 at the start of the session for the 4th time. So the chances of that holding over and over again, I don't see it happening. On top of that, coming into the session, we've got a model 3, which sets some nice structure. We'll get into that in a second, but overall on the 4-hour, as on the daily, the only real area of interest for the algos, in my opinion, is sort of down here in this buy area of interest. We've got first take profit, second take profit, delta held over here on the left, and a bunch of gold zones. So I think before we move on up, we got to move on down. So it might be a shallow thing, a shallow pullback, it might be a deep pullback, it might be violent, it might not be, because it is sort of against the overall trend. Usually you'll see a violent sell-off, and then buyers just take control again. That's from my experience anyway. So yeah, that's what I see sort of playing out, and that was my bias coming into the session from the word go. I was looking for sells only. Don't particularly need to look at that, but when we came into the session, or starting off in London, we've sold off quite heavily. And then I was speaking to someone in the chat, because I just saw this at a glance when we were chatting, and I thought, you know, given what I've seen overall, it wouldn't surprise me if that's a buy trap, which it turned out to be. We sell off toward the open, half an hour before the open. We sell off quite heavily, coming down into a buy area of interest. Sipe caught this nicely, shoots back up, and in this sell-off we've set a 5-minute delta held here, so we're already looking for sells overall. We've now got a 5-minute sell delta held, which is sufficient. It's enough for me to look for an entry. And then on the 1 minute we have the same thing here. Come down into the buy area of interest, violent push up, but if we look to this structure to the left, it's very bearish. So I noted that this is a weak delta held, mainly because we don't see any buyers trying to fight in here. It's all red, and we pull up into the area of interest, into the gold zone, where thanks to order flow we see these sell absorptions, which is a very strong confluence I'm finding. Price comes up. My initial target for an entry was 25,680, but when we came into this area of interest, I was dropping down to my 5T to take a look what was happening. On the 1 minute we see we come into the area of interest, and then again we see the absorption lines here, but by that point I was already looking at the 5T, which we'll go to next. Here, so this was my entry. So coming into the area of interest, we see buyers getting aggressive, which doesn't really work out. We start pulling back, huge buy absorption here, which then creates the absorption lines. We see the internal break, a lower absorption lines break, and then the lowest of the range break. That's my first sort of confirmation. That's what I'm looking for on the 5T. Then we see sellers try and get aggressive. They're trapped initially, coming back up. Big buy trapped on the same level, so sellers are happy to absorb here. Push down, aggressive sellers, little pullback, and then we enter basically on the first bearish candle. Very tight stops, only 5 points, 20 ticks. That's all I've been hitting all week, and yeah, the risk to reward is crazy. I have been trying to hold longer, and I said to myself today, when I feel like closing, or when I feel like taking partials, I'm going to set it to break even, which I did. But then I bitched out and took partials anyway. That's the next thing to work on for me. But my take profit was hit, probably round about down here. 2 minis, that's $1,500, halfway towards a challenge. I made about 750 or 800 on this, which was only a 30-second trade, and then an additional 150 from my 2 micro runners. But as we can see, this didn't really ever. Ooh, maybe I'm lying. No, it didn't come back to my entry, I don't think. Scalper held all the way through this somehow. How about we go to a higher time frame, Max? Yeah. So let's go to this. So my entry was right at the top here, and then we're on our way all the way down. Yesterday, I'm pretty sure I said we're going to be visiting 25,500, and guess where we're heading. So yeah, that's my top down from today. Just want to touch on a few things. Obviously I mentioned on the daily and the 4 hour overall we're consolidating, so it can be very difficult to trade this sort of action, especially when you're new, you feel like nothing's going on. You could end up with the same criteria, wait for all the same confluences, and you still get fucked. And you're like, why? This worked yesterday. It's just because of the environment. So That's why it's important to zoom out, understand where you are on the 4 hour, so you don't end up getting sort of trapped and wiped out. Usual characteristics of that happening is you enter a trade perfectly as you would any other time, starts gradually going in your direction, and then just fucking blasts and takes you out. That's usually because you're against the higher time frame, so something to be mindful of. When I was coming to the session, I was very anxious. I was doing my TA and whatnot, and I was just a little bit fearful, I suppose, so I decided to, rather than ignore it and crack on, I thought I'd do some shadow work quickly. 30-second exercise, worth doing all day. I'll read it out. I'm fearful. Why? Because I'm doing well so far and I don't want to fuck things up. Why do you feel this way? Unsure of action due to ranging, etc. Why? Most likely environment to take losses. Why? Impatience, FOMO, not waiting for discounts. Why? Lack of trust, inability to catch a trade/win. Why? Previous behaviors in a similar environment. So it comes down to behaviors, you know, not waiting for discounts, entering when you're unsure, or not doing your analysis and entering even though you're unsure. Not having confidence in your own sort of abilities and whatnot. But having read that, I was like, well, okay, so it's quite simple. All I need to do is, you know, wait for discounts, read things properly, and, you know, just have confidence in my entries, which I've done. Great trade, third green day of the week. Reading a really good book at the moment, The Courage to be Disliked. Highly recommend it. It certainly helped with a mindset shift in terms of self-belief and ridding of sort of self-doubt and negativity and being caught up in things around you. So yeah, highly recommend that. I'm pretty sure I've covered everything. I did have to record this a second time because my mic wasn't working for no apparent reason, but it should be working now, hopefully. As always, guys, any questions, hit me up, and yeah, have a beautiful week.